What's going on, guys? Dan here, DD Speed Shop, and today's a bit of a different video. We do our live streams on a lot of Saturday nights, and people were talking about a year in review. I was like, oh, that'd be kind of neat, whatever. And then YouTube emails you your year in review with your views and your likes and your comments and stuff like that. And well, they get you thinking like, wow, this is a lot of people out there and stuff like that. Yeah, that's that. And then talking to Merle all the time, he's always saying, working on these different cars. It feels like it was a long time ago, but it was a long time ago in like car progression. But time, it really hasn't been that much. We've got a lot accomplished on this channel this year, and you guys have been along for the ride, and ultimately you're funding it, whether you know it or not, which is awesome. And I appreciate the hell of it. And I thought it's just kind of cool to make a video here, a little bit for myself, just to kind of keep track of the way it went. I actually had to, I got it written down on my phone here. I tried to have my phone out while I'm videotaping, but I had to write it all down because there was so much that happened in this last year, and I still think I'm going to miss stuff in here, which is hilarious. But yeah, I thought we'd have a go at it. So at the end of last year, so like this is December obviously now, of 21, yeah. So December 2020, we brought home that 56 Chevy two-door sedan, which I had bought. A lot of these cars I bought months before, and then they get put in rotation, and they kind of come in. So this one came in the right at the end of the year, into the new year, into the year we're in. So I paid like $300 for the 56 Chevy two-door post. It was completely gutted and rotted out, and no rear suspension, and all sorts of stuff. But so we started off with that thing, brought it in, and that's one of those cars which is pretty rare. Like, I was actually looking for a set of doors. So this is the old, people always ask where I find these cars. Well, this is how ridiculous some of these cars are that I find. I was looking for a set of two-door doors for something that was two-door, and I don't know what it was, Danny's car, or maybe just to have, I don't really even remember. And the guy said, yep, I got a set of doors. I said, okay, great. They're attached to the car, you got by the whole car. I'm thinking, man, whatever. You wanted originally $500, go down. I'm thinking, you buy a set of doors, you take them off, you scrap the car, or do whatever. I thought this thing would be just absolutely beat. And the car was good. I mean, if you go back a year in the videos, there's a playlist on it, 56 Chevy. I mean, it was rough, and needed glass, and had no motor, no trans, and all that, but it had a title. And what else do you need, right? So we talked and bartered, and $300 later, I was leaving with a 56 Chevy. I'm not a huge 56 fan, but the price was right, and she came home. And we did a lot to that thing. Full floors, rockers, I think I did lower quarters on it. But the trunk floor is really nice, I think. We did the floor pan on it, we did the front suspension. I put a motor and transmission in it, put a drive shaft, all those things. I think I just cobbled together some wiring, put the lights on, so we made it kind of running and driving car, but it wasn't really for me. It was just one of those things. It was such a good deal you couldn't pass it up, so there you go. So follow every lead. You never know what's going to happen. And ultimately sold that car off in the spring, and the guy who wanted it is building into a real hot rod. He didn't want the front suspension, didn't want the motor, didn't want the trans, so I got a bunch of parts back, which I was happy with, because I put them in the convertible, which we'll talk about shortly after. So I was working on that. While we were working on that, all my derelict buddies, we ended up doing this Christmas burnout challenge, which was hilarious, and we did a bunch of different things. So our thing that me and Danny did was, well, she did a burnout in the square body, and I got out the snowplow, the 55 Chevy gasser that I put a snowplow on, which got a bunch of kind of goofy looks and stuff like that, which I absolutely love doing, and we'll keep doing it, right? So that was kind of funny. I'd never seen that before. And then since then, there's been some other muscle cars that put some plows on and stuff like that. I get tagged in all of them all the time, and I think it's hilarious. So that was a fun time. Danny wasn't too happy on Christmas Day because I spent the whole day. We had to get the car out of the backyard. It was all snowed in. It was on slicks. It was a nightmare. Oh, it was a full day of thrashing, but it was hilarious. And then I looked at it, so January 1st, I put the first video out of the Satellite, 68 Satellite, which again I had bought in the fall, I believe, or late summer. And it was rough. I mean, it was a kind of a second owner car. Floors were rotting out of it. No motor, no trans, as I'm sure a lot of you guys saw. But we jammed on that thing. So I have written down here, from the beginning of January to the end of January, I wrote down here, it went to, not a project painted as a roller. So I did the floor pans in it, I did the full quarters on it. I did trunk drop downs on it. I remember doing that. Plus all the body work, I guess, around it, making it look all nice, undercoating underneath and all that sort of stuff. So I did everything, painted it, and everything in 30 days. So it was a nice roller. And then it did go out of the garage. It came back in later, but I did a lot of swapping back and forth, which to keep it kind of fresh. I find working as many hours as I do in the garage, you gotta do something different. Even if you're doing like quarter panels or fenders or whatever it may be, but you're doing a different car, it just feels like a new project. So that was kind of cool. At the start of February, the 56 Chevy wagon came home. So that's another funny one. I was looking for headers. This is the old bark up every tree, if that's the saying. I was looking for a set of headers, and the guy had Tri-5 headers for sale. He was out of town. I told Danny, hey, let's hop in the car with the dog, and we went out to go buy the set of headers. They're $100 or whatever it was. That's irrelevant. Anyways, you go there, the guy starts talking, oh yeah, you know, like Tri-5s. Yeah, I got a few. Start talking about all the cars I've had and what I'm doing and this and that. And he says, well, I got a wagon for sale. I think I paid $1,000 for it. 56 Chevy wagon. Wow. Next thing you know, I'm looking at that. Well, I bought it in the fall or like late summer. My buddy Mike stored it for me. Appreciate the hell out of him storing all my junk. And it's sat. Well, obviously collecting parts and stuff like that while I was working the satellite. The wagon was ready. So that came in February, and I guess I worked on that one till March. Now that one was quite a bit bigger of a project because we did put a motor and stuff like that in it. So that was the same thing, full floors, front suspension, rear suspension, all new brakes. I think I did lower fender extensions, rockers. They're always rockers, always a full floor. The rear floor is pretty good though. We polished that one up to wazoo. Murr did a hell of a job. Danny helped out polishing that thing. At the time when I was building that thing, I thought it'd be cool to make that a power tour car for some reason. And then obviously we weren't allowed to go on power tour because we're locked in Canada. But so I put an overdrive transmission in it, and I ended up putting that ridiculous big block in it, which was cool, and it was a lot of fun. A neat looking car, and we still have it. I don't know what I'm going to do with it now, but it was kind of neat. You know, so we got all that done and kept jamming. I think I got it kind of mostly together, and then at that point it was back to the satellite because I had sourced a motor and transmission, and again ordering parts while we were working on the wagon. So satellite came back in, did glass, brakes, suspension. I painted the underhood so it was nice and clean and mint. Went through the motor and trans, did intake, carburetor. I think I gasketed it. I didn't even, like, the problem is I go through so many of these friggin' cars, I forget what I'm even doing. But got it 100% dialed, and it was like driving on the road for April. And that's the beginning of our kind of driving season, April, May, really. But it was done, which was fantastic. So that car was 100% done. Then, so now we're talking about April. That's spring for us. So it's time to start bringing the hot rods home and getting them going, ready for summer and all that sort of stuff. So in the previous year, so again, we're always going backwards, I bought a Challenger, a couple of Challengers actually. And we got it together. It was that real racy 74 Challenger that was an ex-drag car. It was absolutely a drag car, but it still had a tag on it, and it had good insurance or good registration, so it could be brought back to the street. So it had a bunch of stuff, all the wiring ripped out, all the lights, all that sort of stuff. So we needed gone through, so we did that. We made it, I rewired the thing, because it was a super simple wiring setup, because all it had to have was ignition and a fan. It had no cooling system, it had no no charging system. It had a radiator on it, but I mean, it was just, it did nothing. It was a mechanical fuel pump. I guess there was a cooling system. It was a mechanical water pump, sorry, hooked up to a little electric motor that would turn it and stuff like that. So it boiled over and stuff like that. So we went through it, put a proper vacuum advanced distributor in it because it didn't have one of those. Changed, it had a goofy MSD box. It was hard cranking over, just all sorts of stuff like that. So went through that and basically turned it more into a street car. Put all lights in it, put a regular seat, had bucket seats, like race seats, put regular seats in it, had a big roll cage in it, took the roll cage out and turned it into like a roll bar so it could be used. I sourced out a bunch of panels that went with the car, I believe. I don't think I put them in. But you know, put the wiper motor in, like all those little things. It had some holes in the trunk. It had a fuel cell in the trunk at some point, which had rotted out. No, the batteries were in the trunk, and they had, I guess, leaked or something and rotted out. So we cut the pan out and put a new pan in and little stuff like that. But it was a really nice car. It had a barn that fell on it. We got it all kind of cleaned up and stuff. Hopefully at this point, maybe my editing skills are good enough. I've been putting some pictures of these cars up. This is cool. I forget how many I've been through. You know, Merc came over. We took poured power, folded the car out because, like I said, with the barn fell on it, the quarter panels all whacked in and stuff, and just turned it into a running, driving car. And it was cool, and I liked it, and it was neat. But it wasn't for me. I tried hard with the Dodges, the Satellite and the Challenger, and they didn't stick. It wasn't my jam for whatever reason. Nothing against them. I love seeing them on the road. But when I sit in a Tri-5 Chevy, I just like, yep, this is what I like. I didn't feel that way about a Dodge, so moved on. So we did that. What else did I say? Yeah, did all that. Oh, you know what really got me going on that was that damn Black Ghost documentary. It came out on YouTube and got a bazillion views. Everybody and their dog sent it to me. I watched it probably 6 times. I was like, oh, that's pretty cool, and this and that. And then it was fun. It was a good time, but I don't know. Seeing it on YouTube, someone else driving it, that's where I think Challenger should be for me. Unless you have a CUDA. If you have a CUDA, let me know. I'd like to have a CUDA. Then, a 55 came home. So I've had my 55 Chevy. That's where I started the channel on, was doing my 4-door, 2-door 55 Chevy, 2-lane blacktop kind of themed hot rod. So it's a gasser-ish, still got independent front suspension, but lifted and all that. And 454. Tunnel ram, dual quads, fender well headers, yada yada yada, the whole deal. Love that car. When I first bought it, I bought these aftermarket wheel arches, radius wheel wells, and they're meant for like a 27 or 28 inch tall tire. That's what they did. So I had a 28 inch tall tire in there, but you couldn't put a wide one in there because it would fit in there from the side view, look good, but if you went over bumps, if it was sticking out, like the radius, it would jam into it. So it looked kind of goofy, and it just looked small, and it just wasn't enough, I guess, for me. And I drove the first year a lot. I didn't drive the second year so much. And then the third year, which was last year, I drove it a bunch again. But it wasn't for me. So I went out, bought a set of, I don't remember what size the tires were, Big Mickey Thompsons. They were like a radial tire, but they were 315 70s, 60s, I don't know what they were, but they're like a 31 tall tire. And put them on a set of American Racing, like Daisies, that Murr happened to have, which were only 7 wide, so they weren't quite wide enough. And basically blew them on there, put it up beside the car, I jacked the car up, put it where I wanted, traced it out, added, I don't know, 1.5 inches or so, and just cut the thing out, just a raw cut, and put it on there. My God, did it change the look of that car. And I absolutely fell in love with that car all over again. It was, I was never going to sell that car because it was like, you know, kind of got some sentimental value and all that, but wow, friggin' love the way that thing looks. So we kind of jammed on that, and then we went right into beginning of July, end June, beginning of July, and my buddy Josh suckered me into going on Miles of Mayhem, which is like our Canadian drag week, which, something that, I mean, I think every hot rodder wants to do. And so we went in there with my buddy Dallas and Peg from Zip Ties and Bias Blies, and it was just an absolute blast. What a nightmare. So I went to help Josh put his car together. Just needed a couple of days of work, he said. Well, my God, I think I was there 5 days or 6 days before the race, and I think we worked, I don't know, 15, 18 hours a day on that car, non-stop. And it still wasn't done. We drove to the first race. We were late. We hadn't slept for, I don't know, a couple of days. And when we got there, we still had to put the car together to pass tech and all that, and barely made the first pass. Last car down the track. And that really shows how the week went. We were behind until it was over. But you know what? Great time and stuff like that. I can't complain too much. If it went easy, it wouldn't have been fun, you know. So it was a good memory. I'll never forget that. That was a blast. On the way home from Miles of Mayhem, I stopped in at a collector car guy. It was a collector car wrecking yard. We did a couple of videos on that, and he had a 57 Chevy 4-door hardtop. And I've always heard you could turn Tri-5s, well, any Tri-5, into a convertible. Typically the hardtops are easy to change into, a 2-door hardtop being the easiest. But a 4-door is affordable. So I think I paid $700, $1,000 or something like that. And well, we dragged that thing home, and it sat outside for a little bit. Well, I tracked down. What really sold me on this, I knew of a factory convertible Tri-5 frame. So it's a 3-year only frame, has a big X brace in it and stuff like that. I think I paid $1,000 for it or something like that, which is a lot of money, as much as the car. But it's built on a proper chassis, so it's not going to twist or tweak or any of those things. And I was like, it all kind of worked out. So the car came home, and we worked on that. But before I got to that, I started, for whatever reason, on a 57 Chevy for myself. Now, clearly I love Tri-5 Chevys, and a few years ago I built Danny, a 57, my old lady, Danny, a 57 Chevy, 2-door post, and we were spending some money. I put LS in it, and disc brakes, and all these things, which are kind of nice. So, pretty nice car when you're building it for your significant other. You don't cut any corners, right? Well, I freaking love that car. I've never been an LS guy. I've never been any of those things. I've always been hot rod, small block Chevy, this and that. Well, that LS motor, they're ugly, but it's hard to argue with them. They have gobs of power. They just work. They don't screw up. They just, you understand why they're common and popular, I should say. So I thought to myself, this 57 Chevy had come up in the past. I bought that, I think, almost a full year before in the winter. It was a 4-door, 150, like the green tint Sunray or Sea Ray, whatever it's called, glass, from the little old lady, and it was so cool. And hopefully I'll put a picture up somewhere. And even though it was a 4-door, it was black with a white top, so it kind of had a Black Widow vibe. It wasn't the proper paint scheme, but pretty close. And it just looked so cool. And it was all pretty much complete, 100% complete, missing motor trans, shocker. And had some weird things, like the deck lid had been like ripped off the hinges and stuff like that. So anyways, fell in love with it. Same thing, I think I paid $1,000 or $1,500 for that. Brought her home, and immediately turned that into a 2-door because I wanted a 2-door 57 Chevy LS swap. So I think what I did, I wrote this down. Oh yeah, so I brought it home, and within 2 weeks I had converted it over to a 2-door on the outside. So reworked the quarters on that car. I used the back doors as door skins, or as quarter panel skins, sorry. Put that in there, put the doors on, redid the rockers, and I put new floors in and just made it so it would kind of roll around, and then we pushed it outside. So it actually looked pretty good sitting outside for the neighbors to drive by. I had a hood on it, I put some headlights in it and all those things, put a tarp on it, put a license plate, no one knows. So that was cool. Now that took us, before you know it, it's August, right? So Models of Mayhem went till kind of middle of July, then it was my birthday, we did a little bit of traveling, worked 2 weeks on the 57, and then it came to me, well, this 57, the black 57, my new plan with that's the new power tour car, by the way, if we ever get to go. So I was like, well, I want to build this thing, and I want to start driving. I want to drive year-round. Year-round hot rod, so that was the plan with that. We'll get back to it. But I was like, well, if I'm going to drive it year-round, what's the rush to get it done right now when I wanted to build this convertible? Well, do you build a 2-door sedan with an LS motor for summer, or do you build a convertible? We built a convertible. So we pulled that 4-door 57 into the garage, and it was a little rougher than I had hoped. But when you're buying a car out of a wrecking yard, you don't have a whole lot of options. It is what it is. They only made so many of them. I took a bunch of flack that I was going to cut up a 4-door hardtop. Everybody loved the 4-door hardtop, which I was blown away, but so be it. In that amount of time, I had collected a set of 2-door hardtop doors, which are pretty much the same as convertible doors. There's slight differences, but it worked fine. We got the chassis. We done some stuff like that. And it worked out really well because I had the frame out in the driveway, cleaned it all, pressure washed it, did all those things. And the entire, we're going back in the video now, that 56 Chevy that I sold, the 2-door post, early on in the year, well, the guy who didn't want the front suspension, he didn't want the motor, he didn't want the transmission, he didn't want the brakes, he didn't want, like, all carpet inside, all sorts of stuff. It was just, I sold it as like a shell with like the chassis and everything too, but it worked out great. So you pressure wash off the frame. It had a couple of rust holes I had to fix, but very minor stuff. So I think in a matter of 2 or 3 days, I had cleaned it, wire wheeled it, painted it black, put on a whole new front suspension, like as a whole, like control arms, upper, lower, with the spindle and the brake, just chunk like 8 bolts. It was all on, brand new, painted, new bushings, new ball joints, new brakes. And it was a roller, all new tie rods, the whole deal. I kept it all. So put it on, and that was done. And the rear end in it was piled up. It actually rotted out. I had another one, slipped the rear end in there, and had a new set of leaf springs. So the chassis was rebuilt front to back. I mean, with it rebuilt, it was painted and re-gone through. So it was done. I brought the car inside. I don't remember how all it went. I'm pretty sure I built the car on the old chassis. So I put the doors on, the rockers in. I kind of made it look like a convertible. The floor was rotten in that car, in that 4-door hardtop. It was so rotten. And I wanted to do the floor before I cut the roof off, but either I didn't have the floor or I just didn't do it that way. I don't remember. But anyways, I was like, okay. And my original scheme was, well, I'll put the floor in from the top. That's what I did. I cut the roof off. I was like, well, the floor will just go in from the top. It'll be no big deal. Because typically what I do is you have your frame, you have the body, and I would jack the front of the car up and slide the floor in. Well, if there's no roof, there's no structure. So I was trying to do that. Well, that was not going to work. So then I think I welded up a few braces and stuff like that, but that didn't work either. And at one point, we had the car jacked up. We were sliding the floor, and Murr was there, and Danny was there. I had the doors shut. We had to get the door open and stuff, and the car just folded right in half. And I was like, oh, what have we done here? So anyways, you got the floor kind of in the car, and all that was holding it was the rockers. 2 outer rockers worth of tin. That was it holding the car from flailing around. So we anchored the back of the car to something, and the front of the car ran the winch around the windshield post, and I pulled it straight so the car went back to where I thought it should be, so the doors open and closed, welded her all in, and we kept jamming. Ultimately, all the body mounts worked out, and it worked out pretty good. After we got that, I think I got the floor in, the rockers are in. I think I then welded the doors shut and put in some bracing, and then we did a body swap onto that chassis, which was very sketchy. I learned a lot from that, how not to do a body swap. So if you've been watching the Nomad build and you saw how I did that, that's the way to do it. Do not take any advice of that that convertible swap, because it was bad. It was very scary. I was very frustrated. So, and we was jammed on that all of August, all through August, and we were driving that in September, which, taking a car out of the wrecker and turning it from a 4-door hardtop, rotted out, not even a roller, because it had no wheels on it. I think it had a block of wood we had to drag it off with, into, I mean, we'll call it a 2-door convertible. It's a roadster, there's no convertible top in it and stuff, but we got it all in primer, and from a distance it gets all the thumbs up, and it drives around, and it's got a 400 small block in it, a turbo 350, and you know, it's got dual exhaust with glass packs on it. It's a throwback, and I mean, eventually I will paint that car this winter. I plan on scuffing it up. I feel like I've just got so many projects, but I want to scuff that thing up, do just a little bit more repair to it, and I think it'd be nice as a red 57 Chevy. Maybe we'll get a top one of these days. So we got that done. That was out in September. Well, then the black car came back in, the Black Widow. And I mean, it was pretty self-explanatory at that point. The big job had been done of turning into a 2-door, so it was LS swap. You know, I did the brakes, the control arms, the inner panels, rewired it, like all those things that now you have to do, which are kind of not the fun part of a car. But we got that thing taken care of, and I'm driving it 3-4 times a week as it is right now. It's got a snowplow on it. We went and got a Christmas tree with it. Just a car. I mean, it's a Chevy truck motor, or out of an Escalade, or whatever it is. A brand new Turbo 400 with a high stall and tubular control arms, disc brakes. The only thing stock on right now is the rear end, but I do have a 12-bolt for it, which we're putting in. And I'm thinking about putting a gear bender in it. I'm not too sure. It's big bucks, but overdrive would be pretty nice, I think. And I'm a big fan of the Turbo 400 transmission, I gotta say. So that might be a Miles of Mayhem, or a drag week car, or a power tour car, or who knows car, but it's a car. So that's that. What else we got going on? So that kind of brings us right up until you know, the fall. Like, we're getting pretty close to the present. And man, I tell you, we had a busy fall all at once. So, you know, we've been saving money for a bunch of years and stuff like that and everything, and we've been looking for a new place, obviously. We wanted more space, which we all do, I'm sure. And we just love where we are in the city. I know a lot of guys think we should be out in the farmland, but we love the city. I love Amazon Prime. Me and Bezos are good buddies, and you know, getting food delivered to your door and all that sort of stuff. It's pretty important to me. And we're close to Murr when he's actually home. I mean, let's be honest, you gotta be close to Murr. Everybody needs a Murr in their lives. Unless you have too many Murrs, then you don't. But, so I went and knocked on the neighbor's door and made an offer on his place. Thought about it, came back, asked for more money. We said okay. That happened actually in September, but didn't close till end of October. And there you go. So we started doing that. So we have more parking, a second garage, a whole other house we're dealing with for who knows what we're going to do there. It's still ongoing right now. So far it's just been bleeding money left and right, which is tough to take. So thanks for watching the ads, by the way. We really appreciate them. And at the same time, at the end of October, the Nomad. So this Nomad, I've actually been chasing it for almost a full year. I heard about it, and then it was far away, and then it kind of had a rat race of going across Canada and through different owners, and I did some trading for it. I bought a Challenger, and I spruced it up, and I kind of flipped it in exchange, and all these things kind of happened to get a 55 Nomad in my life. And if you guys have watched the last few videos, if you haven't, I think you should, or recommend it, because this thing was so beat. It was probably one of the most beat cars. I mean, it was right on par with that four-door turning into a convertible. But this is actually worth something in the end. Basically, I bought a roof skin with a VIN number on it, and I've been giving her ever since on this thing for the last probably 3 weeks or a month, depending on when this video kind of comes out. But it's new quarters, new floors, front to back, like right from the toe boards all the way to the absolute back. Had to make a door for it. We're working on fenders and stuff now, so it's got every bit and piece. The only piece, new rockers, the only thing I've used from this car is, I said, the firewall, the roof, the deck lid, and the passenger side door. Everything else, like including the chassis, I swapped chassis and everything. Didn't the motor and trans, bought that. I've had a bunch of bits of, being a Tri-5 guy, I've had a pile of bits and pieces and stuff like that, so there's very little left of this car that was actually usable. But we now have a running and almost driving 55 Chevy Nomad, which is pretty cool. And then along the ways, you know, me and Danny were talking, what's the point in trying to save all this money? You gotta spend it on certain things, so we bought a proper work truck to haul stuff around, bought a little Bobcat so we can move stuff around too, because I'm throwing my back out and stuff like that. So we've been going pretty hard at that. So that's kind of up until now. I mean, and there's been lots of little things over the time I'm sure I glossed over, and I probably even forgot. A lot of you guys know what I do better than myself. Danny sure does. But yeah, I think I counted, and it was 6 cars or something like that we ended up building in a year, and not just, you know, do a motor swap. It was like full work to a car, which that's pretty good. Every 2 months or whatever it's going to be, every 30 days on some of them, turn these hot rods out. It's been exciting. And now we're a whole new year. I'm excited for 2022. Hopefully the other garage will be open up here early into the new year. And I'll be able to do 2 projects at once, and I've got more space for storing stuff and all sorts of exciting things. So I'm really I'm gearing up for it. A lot of people always ask what the next project is. I don't know. I honestly don't know. It's currently it's a Nomad. I said I want to get that 57 painted. I've got a bunch of ideas of the current cars we have. Switching some motors and drive lines around, because ultimately some cars have to go. I can't keep them all. I think that 56 wagon's probably going to find a new home sooner rather than later. And there's been a few cars that have been on the channel very briefly, but I'd like to bring them in. And I had before we started doing YouTube, so it doesn't have that tie-in yet. But I've had a 71 Nova SS 4-speed for years now, and actually Murr, of all people, bought it for me. When I say bought it for me, it was pretty rough. You get what you pay for. But anyways, I've never been super happy with it. There's a few things it needs, and I don't want to do that to it. Danny's car, I did rob the motor out of it for my car, so it's just sitting there with no motor in it, so we gotta get that taken care of and stuff like that. So we've got next couple of months where the project's no problem. And hey, this thing might actually get some proper paint on it. I don't know, maybe you guys need to bully me a little bit harder, because it hasn't been enough yet. anyways, that's the year in review. I forget what the numbers were, how many likes, 600,000 or 700,000 likes or whatever it is, and million, well, it's 12 million views or some. They're crazy numbers when I wrap my head around it, to think that many people have watched what I'm doing in a 22 by 22 garage in the city of Winnipeg. But I appreciate it very much. Thank you so much for watching. If I didn't cover anything, or leave a comment, or whatever it may be, or shoot me an email, be in the link below. I try and answer everybody I can, do the best I can. But anyways, I've been John here for I don't even know how long. I gotta get back to work, because these videos don't make themselves. Thanks for watching. See you next time.